Hi. Hi, it's me again. I'm back with another video. Today is the topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but unfortunately I got sick and then I had to move, and now I'm completely into my new place and settled in. It looks really nice. I don't know if I'm going to include pictures, I might. But basically, I want to talk today about learned helplessness and weaponized incompetence. So, if you've been on the internet at all in the past few months, you're going to see that this is a conversation that's come up several times. It's usually related to a woman who has a husband who is using these tactics of weaponized incompetence in order to not have to participate in household duties. Now, the learned helplessness is another topic that I've seen from people who just give up on trying to change their situation based off of the scenario that they're in. I'm going to insert the definitions here. So when I think of weaponizing competence, I think of a scenario that most of us are used to, usually like in a workplace or sometimes in relationships, where you are trying to do something and get something done. And unfortunately, oops, sirens. Sirens. Should I close the window? I don't feel like it. I don't think it's going to pick up, so we'll hope for the best. So in the workplace, it usually looks like your coworker is new or maybe newish to the job and they're not really doing their fair share, and they will need help with simple tasks that they should know how to do, honestly. When I think of it in the workplace, I think of an annoying coworker who just can't do anything by themselves. They need your help all the time. They need your help all the time. When you're trying to get your work done, like a supervisor or manager or something will come over to you and ask you to help them. Like, I'm all for training and stuff, but it also needs to be compensated. I don't know where this thing came from where people will just try and get you to do extra work for free, which is exhausting and eventually makes you resent your job. Now, the other situation that I see it happening is long term relationships and marriages. So, say that you're a 50-50 relationship. So, the one partner goes 50% and the other partner goes 50%. But one partner is in charge of like child rearing, and they're also gonna just be more involved, honestly. So, they're gotta work their full time job. They got to handle the child rearing. They have to be emotionally there for their partner, and then they have to take care of all household tasks while the other person just does 50% of the bills, and that's it. And, I feel like there needs to be like a fair exchange when you're in a relationship with somebody, because I'll see people complain about this all the time. Like, oh, I'm doing this, this, and this. And I've talked to him and he doesn't hear me. But something that I've learned recently is there are blogs, it's like subreddits and other blogs that are used for like men to vent on how they can get out of doing their fair share of like housework or something. So, unfortunately, like with our society, a lot of men are not raised with proper proper life skills. So they don't have the proper life skills. And since they don't have those skills, they find ways to get out of anything that they're needing to do in order to live a successful life. Or they're aware of those things, but they try their best not to do them well. Like the video that I saw, I'll probably insert it. The lady asked her husband to do the dishes and he like threw all the dishes into the sink or something and broke them or something along those lines. Or the one that was really, really viral a few years ago, there was a lady who asked her husband for help with household tasks while she was away, and she knew he wasn't going to do it. So the intro to the video was like me preparing to see what the house is gonna look like after I took like a week vacation or something with my friends. And it was literally just like an absolute mess, which is so exhausting. I don't understand how you can stay in a relationship where you're doing all of that labor and the other person doesn't even try. and she knew the situation, I guess, because he'd done it before. And for me, like, that's a deal breaker. Like, if you cannot take care of yourself, like, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who's emotionally stunted and they want to behave like a child and not, take care of themselves. Like, if a kid doesn't know how to do chores, fine, but you're like a grown adult. Like, that's a life skill. That's not something that should even be negotiable past the age of like 15. You should know how to do this stuff. And it's just like so exhausting to see those videos because I feel like it's a form of abuse. I'll look it up and see if it is. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, the answer is yes. It is absolutely a form of abuse. But not only that, while I was researching, I discovered that weaponized incompetence also is like a coping mechanism or a survival tactic for people who have had, not like helicopter parents, but definitely overly involved and controlling parents. So they are used to that because basically they get rejected too many times from their parents to do certain tasks, I guess to keep them to dependent and in a toxic situation. So then that is their response, which I'm not gonna say makes it right, but it definitely puts it more into context. Just because like I had the opposite upbringing of that, like responsibility and self-reliance was like very important. Like yes, there were other emotional manipulation tactics that were going on, but definitely responsibilities for household tasks was something that I was responsible for. I think it's definitely abusive for somebody to do these type of tactics and enact this behavior on you because eventually it's gonna be like so mentally draining that it's gonna put you in a very terrible headspace. And my situation that I can think of, this isn't directly my situation, it's something that I was seeing on the internet. But what I would try and do is there's a thing you can do called gray rocking, which works really, really well with narcissistic people, but I think it will also work well with somebody who's using weaponized incompetence. Like just don't give them a reaction, don't do what they want you to do, and see like wallow, see how long it'll take. The one that I saw where this one ultimately ended in divorce, but a lady tried that with her deadbeat husband who wouldn't do any household chores, and eventually she just gave up and said, "Okay, I'm leaving." And that's when he tried to use his, "Oh, I can do it. Like, let's work this out." Da 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 da. Like those type of people, they're going to want to keep abusing you and using up your resources and your mental faculties to make sure that they're comfortable and they're set. So you have to take it upon yourself to make sure that you don't allow that to happen and you make sure that you can change the situation. And by change the situation, I mean like if they're not willing to at all make an effort to do something better, you have to leave the situation. For example, say you let them do the weaponized competence, whatever, one time. After that one time, you can show them in detail, talk to them or whatever, but you have to set that boundary. Like, hey, you're not a child, we're in a relationship. We need to both participate in household tasks. And if you're not going to do that, like, I don't see a future with you because I can't raise my partner. And if they say they understand, they watch you, they take the details, whatever, and then it happens again after that, you just have to let them know, like, I'm done. Like, I know divorce is hard or breaking up with somebody is hard, but you just have to realize, like, if you keep letting this happen, it's just going to keep snowballing, getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And unfortunately, a lot of people will settle for that because they don't think that there are any people that can basically meet the needs that they want to be met. I remember not a few years ago, this is when I was a teenager. So when I was a teenager, I saw a blog on Tumblr dedicated to this housewife who had a husband who didn't know how to wipe his butt, or he did, but he didn't want to do it because he was gay. So she was literally putting pads in this man's boxers to like mitigate the poop stains and make sure that, I don't know if it was a troll account or whatever, but when I saw that as a kid, I'm like, ugh, I don't understand how you could be in a relationship with somebody who's willing to do that to you because clearly they don't respect you. And I think there just needs to be a boundary set in that area. Okay, so with learned helplessness, I can speak on this from my personal experience. I won't go too into detail. I just don't want to deal with drama. But basically, learned helplessness is like when you keep having negative experiences and bad things that happen to you over and over again, and you're like shut down, or you keep experiencing like some type of backlash from something. Eventually you get to the point where you're just like, all right, fine, I just won't do anything. I'm not gonna bother, I'm not gonna try, I'm just gonna let, like, just being passive in your own life. It will like result in low self-esteem, which is something that I had to work on. It will result in frustration, which is something that I still deal with to this day. Like I try not to be frustrated, but I get very frustrated very easily, especially when communication isn't good. It will mess up your sense of positivity, so you can become like a very cynical person or pessimistic even. You can become like effort lacking, where you're basically just not doing things to the best ability that you know that you can do. That's not something that I really struggle with at this point. And also just giving up. Like if something bad or like adverse happens to you, you just give up at the drop of a hat. This is something that I think goes hand in hand with each other. Like when you're around people who are intentionally making it so that your life is difficult, eventually, like as a survival skill, you'll learn to be like learn learned helplessness or whatever. So this is something that I would say to get out of that mindset. Like number one is definitely going to be therapy. Go to therapy. Therapy is so important. It's so beneficial. It's so helpful. The other thing that I would say is try and communicate your frustrations or your disappointments. So I had a friend in college who was going through something like this, and she had a trouble setting a boundary. So I told her, I'm like, take out a notebook and you're gonna write down everything that you want to say. Make sure it's like very versed out. Try not to be aggressive because people will use that against you. Try not to be too confrontational. Just use many I feel statements and like how that is impacting you. So if the person is being emotionally abusive, you can just say like, hey, when you talk to me or you say XYZ thing, this makes me feel like ABC way. I would like to not feel this way when I'm with you or in these situations. So how about we set this boundary to do like EFG? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So something that you have to know is like if something's not working and you tried all your outlets and you've made it so that you're doing everything you can to have a better relationship with somebody or improve something and they continuously don't do it, like you just have to know like, hey, I gotta cut this person off. Because at the end of the day, like your sanity is more important than how this person is going to view you. Like if they don't respect you and you've given so many attempts to better the situation and they're not doing anything to make it so that that's the case, you just gotta cut them off. So when you're in these situations and you're around these type of people, like you just have to know, like, hey, I'm setting this boundary, and if this keeps happening, like basically, I have a two rule thing that I've started to implement. Like if somebody does something that I really, really don't like, and it's the first time that they've done it, I'll clearly state what it is, why it's making me upset, and like how the relationship can progress with this type of behavior or without it. And then the second time, if they do that thing, like I know the term is like an ouch. If they do it again, then I just cut them off. Like I'm at the point in my life where I shouldn't be having to teach you like how to have respect for other people or decorum. Like the amount of respect that you have to have for somebody and the lack of respect that you have to do to keep doing the same negative things and abusive tactics over and over again, you just have to know like this isn't gonna work for me, or this is a boundary that I'm not willing to keep having crossed, and here's what we can do to fix it. If you're not willing to do that, then I'm done. And that's just something that you have to be comfortable with. Like as I said before, like as you get older, you just have to tolerate less from people because people at a certain point are aware that the things that they're doing are toxic or abusive or narcissistic or just bad in general. You have to recognize that they know that deep down. And if they're not trying to make an improvement on how they're interacting with you, you know that that person is not somebody who adds value to your life. Like I know relationships should not be transactional, and that's something that I'm still unlearning. But if you are putting in way more than you're getting out, like the other conversation I've seen is like high effort and low effort friends. But if you feel like something is not matching on a wavelength and you've already communicated that to your partner or your friend or any relationship that you're having and it still keeps happening, you have to know to just walk away or let it go. Okay, so that was all that I have to say on this topic, and I'm gonna say peace. Bye.